As soon as you step foot on a personal development journey, going after your goals journey, transforming your life journey, inevitably and probably pretty quickly, you'll come across content that talks about positivity, having a positive mindset, keeping a positive attitude, some version of that, right? And all the things that are related to it, like a gratitude practice and so forth. And I'm not here to say that that isn't important. In fact, I use gratitude practices as a daily practice, which over a period of time, if you implement it, it does help a lot, at least for me personally, with my overall perspective and mood. However, a lot of the positive mindset, positive feelings, advice, things like affirmations, perhaps, things like a quick 2-minute, 3-minute ritual of listing out what you're grateful for, things like that. If you're anything like me, it can sometimes feel like it's a drop in the bucket against the deluge or the tsunami of just sometimes shit you got to shovel in your life. You with me? Can you relate? It's like, it feels like it's a tiny little, drop in the bucket compared to the wave of things that you got to deal with mentally and emotionally in life, especially when, there's fires on 7 different fronts in your life, for example. And so for me personally, I have often found a lot of the how to have a happy, positive mindset, Pollyanna type stuff to be woefully underwhelming, just not effective or adequate for helping me personally have an overall better positive mindset in general, right? Because when you wake up in the morning, let's say early, fresh mind, and you do your little positive ritual, it can be a lot easier to feel positive before life's tried to kick you in the dick 7 ways from Sunday by 12 o'clock in the noon, depending on just how life's going, right? So what can work to actually have a real strong, meaningful impact on your mind, overall state, attitude, and feeling? And interestingly enough, what worked really well for me is something that I first heard from Brooke Castillo. She's a life coach. And it's this idea of just assume that about 50% of the time in your life, things are going to be going wrong and things are going to suck and things are going to feel bad. So instead of fighting really hard to make things positive, just assume that generally speaking, half of the time, something's going to feel shitty. And what can be true also is that at the exact same time, you can feel shitty about one area or one thing in your life while winning in another area. So it's the way I think of it is I can assume that about half of my days are not going to feel happy or positive. And about half the time, half the things are going to be moving sideways or not doing what I want them to do, so on and so forth. You with me? By assuming and expecting that about half the time, half the things are going to be just not cooperating, to say it nicely, and I'm prepared for that, you know what? And I'm going to be okay with that. What it does is it helps me to be much less reactive and emotional about shit moving sideways when it moves sideways. And if you're a human being, you constantly have things moving sideways, right? Like when I first heard this idea, and then I just sat down with a cup of coffee and a cigar and thought about it, and I kind of replayed the last, I think it was like 6 months to a year of my life up until that point when I first heard this idea from Brooke. I was like, you know what? When I replay my life over the last 6 months to a year, yeah, about half the time, half the shit's going wrong. But because I've persisted, stayed consistent, overall my life is elevating and my problems are changing because they're becoming problems that are a byproduct of a higher level of success. But still, the problems don't go away. The concept and the feeling, the energy of problems don't go away. So this idea of just expecting things to not feel good or to be going wrong or not cooperating about 50% of the time, what it does is allows you to just kind of be more level-headed and prepared for it. It has put me into a headspace and a mindset where I can say, oh, okay, here you are. And this isn't like some kind of defeatist mindset where it's like, oh, problems. It's not like that. It's not like something moving sideways, something not cooperating, something not going the way I want it to go. That doesn't stop me from putting in the work. What it helps me with is simply accepting that, like, look, literally about half the time, half the stuff is going sideways. But as long as I stay consistent, keep putting in the work, overall, my life is trending in a better direction and elevating. And so instead of focusing on the micro unit of my life, the day, I focus on the macro unit of my life, like a year, and look at the trend. You with me? There's this idea, if you think about it, there's this idea that the more you want something that you don't have, the deeper you are going to feel the gap or disparity between where you're at and where you want to be, or between what you don't have and what you want. So the more you try to force having a really happy mindset right now, while maybe genuinely, realistically shoveling shit in your life and having to put out 7 fires, the bigger the gap is between the two, the more negative the negativity is going to feel, right? So if, like, on a spectrum of 0 to 100 as a metaphor or analogy, if my level of wanting to force a positive feeling is at level 98, right? And let's say 50 is neutral. I'm changing a little bit. Let's say 50 is neutral. So you can go 50 points positive or 50 points, left or right negative. If my feeling of wanting to feel super positive, forcing it, having a happy mindset is like at, 48 to the right, 2 points away from 50, but the shit that I'm realistically dealing with is like 39 to the left, let's say bad, negative, that's creating a huge spectrum of dissonance. You with me? So instead of wanting to force feeling happy so bad, I accept things the way they are, where they're at, and instead of trying to force being happy and positive, everything's okay, I instead focus on accepting things where they're at, meeting them where they're at, and taking positive action while accepting any negative feelings that I have and just letting them be there. Hopefully that makes sense, and I did a decent job of explaining that, right? It's like, what do they say that how does that saying go? I think it was Epictetus or somebody like that who said that the key to wealth is not getting more, but the key to feeling happiness and wealth is being satisfied with less. And I'm not saying to not have big goals. I'm an incredibly big goals, big dreams, driven, ambitious individual. So far be it for me to say, don't have goals, just accept life for what it is. I'm not saying accept life for what it is and do nothing about it. What I'm saying is accept the circumstances for what they are now in whatever areas of your life where you feel like things are moving sideways, and just instead of trying to force yourself to be happy and put on a fake smile, just be like, okay, look, this really sucks. I hate this. All right, well, I'm okay with that because I believe that if I just put in some time, some work, and some patience into this, I'll work it out, I'll improve it, etc. And by just having that simple, like, all right, if I'm being honest, this fucking sucks. This day's kind of a shit show. All right, well, I'm just going to be honest with myself. I'm not going to be working super fast today, but I'm going to put one foot in the front of the other. I'm going to show up and I'm just going to chip away. That actually ends up feeling much more positive because you don't get sucked up into like this churn of a negative downward spiral, right? Because the more I want to force feeling positive, the angrier or more upset or frustrated you'll feel by the negative, right? But if I show up today in my day and I say, all right, so these 3 clients are not cooperating, this piece of technology isn't working, my body is suddenly now aching and hurting here and there, these 2 people are talking shit about me and lying, like whatever, right? Like let's just say you have an endless list of things that are just going sideways. I'll just take a step back and be like, okay, all right, this is the day. Okay, well, I don't like this. This sucks. It is what it is. I like to, one of my jokes I always say is the lotus unfolds. The lotus of life just unfolds and it's ever unfolding, right? It's just unfolding. I'm here for it. Let's one foot in front of the other. Let's see what we can get done. Let's just see what we can get done. One foot in front of the other. A little bit of progress, Andre. Just a little bit of progress, bro. A little perfection over progress. Perfection over progress, right? And so I might adopt a mantra for the day that is helpful to me. But what I don't do, what's helped me to be a lot more positive is I don't force myself to feel really positive and fake it and pretend. Because, look, realistically, if you're shoveling shit today, you're shoveling shit. Are you with me? Does that make sense? So hopefully this video helps. Hopefully this message helps. Hopefully this video finds the people that it's meant to find and it helps you. What's really worked for me is to just assume that 50% of the time, 50% of things are going to be moving sideways, or half of my days in general, overall, are probably just not going to be a peak high experience. And instead of fighting that and trying to force positivity, which again, the more I trying to force one direction when circumstances are clearly giving me a different kind of experience, I simply just accept the experience for what it is and I look to take positive action, meaning putting in some kind of action, while accepting the feeling and not having to force some fake Pollyanna nonsense. And that actually helps me to feel significantly more positive and less emotional, reactive, and dark and moody and negative, and I spiral. My negativity doesn't spiral as deep and as out of control as it once did. It's just by acceptance of it, whatever it is, and moving on and working through it. That's it. So hopefully that helps. That's the message for today.